NANI?!
Hi everyone, Marçal here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new... Wait. This album is just as flavorful as my drink. Oh, by the way, I'm drinking water. I guess if I were to point out a silver lining to this, is that it's nowhere near as bad as I was anticipating. At least it has a glimmer of interesting moments, and some pretty alright tracks. But overall, it's still more of the same Ed has been doing for the past half a decade. There isn't much to say here. I guess the only true in-depth comment I can give here is that Sandman sounds like a song that would play in the background of a 5-minute Crafts video, and that the lyrics of the album in general try to be relatable, but it gives me so many vibes of that one Logic Suicide Phone song where he goes, "Who can relate? Woo!" That is the best I can come up with. There are highlights, but honestly, who cares at this point? Well, certainly not me, not you, not JPEGMAFIA, not anybody. 45%. There isn't a particular reason why this record is so great. It's just a collection of consistently amazing songs, with well done production that succeeds in keeping me hooked and makes me want more after it's finished, even if some moments could be a little more engaging. I guess the only criticisms that I have here are that in the subsequent listens, it felt like it was wearing on me a bit, which probably means the score will ascend later, but hopefully not. And I also would invert the last two songs in the tracklist to make for a more satisfying listen. But those are minor criticisms. I recommend everyone to take a shot at this album because it hella deserves it. I regret not diving into Spawn sooner, cause I wanna drown in it now. Which, I'm not sure if it's a good thing. Anyway, 87%. I remember in the beginning of the year feeling pretty lukewarm over Chemtrails, and this made me worry if Lana was ever going to give us a project on the same level of NFR. But luckily, this record deconfirmed my worries. It's not as great as NFR was, but I do feel like this is a record that manages to hold my interest really well throughout the tracklist. Many songs have a pretty distinct identity sound-wise, most of them are present here, and this makes it key to set this album apart from a good fraction of her discography. And I'd possibly say that this is her second best record, just losing to, you know. Unfortunately, it still comes with some hefty baggages. The productions sometimes fall flat, and the negative highlights are some of the pretty middling tracks together with one of the worst interludes I've heard this year. This interlude is the closest thing to Cursed that Lana's discography has ever gotten since that one Cola song. And to wrap it up, this record has ups and downs, but certainly one album that shall be remembered in the future as one of Lana's most solid works. So, I call it 77% superb. Give me 1 second. I will admit that my first impression of this record was that it was great, but I needed to listen to it more times, which I did. And the more I did, the more it grew on me. All the genre fusions, from rock, to afroche, to glitch, to samba, to avant-garde, to everything else, combined in a way that makes it one of the most musically daring projects of this year so far. Positive highlights are brutal, like a Killdozer, songs that exemplify perfectly all this record is about, and even the negative one is a song that makes me go and the only point against it that I really have to make is that it doesn't hit as hard as the other songs do. To me, this is one of the definitive musical statements of 2021, a record that has really high chances of being my album of the year, and a major proof to the entire world that fantastic music can come from anywhere, and all that matters is how open you are to dive into what you're not familiar with. It's just... Screw it, 98%. Oh, and by the way, can't forget that. This album makes me feel two things, bewilderment and regret, both for not checking Brandi's music sooner. Prior to this album, I only knew Brandi as the one girl who occasionally wins some Grammys, but this album showed me way more than just that. This is possibly the best Americana album to come out this year. It has a great production, a wide musical range, Carlile's beautiful voice and lyricism, and so many great songs. It's an album that motivates me to listen to whatever else she has to offer. And consider that even the weaker points of the record are pretty solid, you bet I will return to this one. Oh boy, I can bet all of my money on this cause I know I'm going to win this bet. Anyway, 88% superb. Funny story, I first heard this album when it came out, and my reaction was like, no, I don't wanna make another negative review about an acclaimed album this year, no, I don't want. But a few days later, I checked it out once again, and my reaction was the exact opposite. There is such a strange charisma to this album. The beats are a really odd, quirky variant of experimental hip-hop that doesn't sound like anything I've heard before. I never heard a JPEGMAFIA album before this, so consider that. And with Peggy's lyricism varying from misanthropic to playful, we have here one record that is easily one of the most interesting albums to come out all year. And while it's not one of my absolute favorites of the year, it's an album that I really look forward to returning in the future. Positive highlights, negative highlights, and the score I give to this album is a good old 86%. Well, it's another Lucifer album. Lucifer is a band that every time I listen, I enjoy their stuff considerably, but I rarely have much else to say besides that it's good. Do you like hard rock? Do you like heavy psych? Do you like doom or heavy metal? And most importantly, did you like any of the band's previous 2 albums? Then you're gonna like this. There isn't much else to say here. It is what it is. I guess what I can say is that the overall quality of the songs probably makes this only lose to Lucifer 2 in my ranking of their discography. Even still, I would like to see the band leaving their comfort zone for once. Their only album in their discography that has a different sonority is their debut, and that's only because the album has a lot more fuzz and distortion than the other ones. So maybe time to change things for the better a little bit? Regardless, it's a pretty nice record, with the following highlights, and a score that ironically is not 666%, but rather 78. This record reminds me a lot of King Gizzard's Butterfly 3000, because both share the same flaw. They are both overwhelmingly sweet. While the overall sound of the record is pleasing, I think the production and the vocals have this very candy-like sound, that if you are like me, too much candy makes you want to lie down on the floor and start crying because of the nausea, the headache, and the regret. Just to clarify, I'm not 100% sick of this record. Instead of sick like eating mukbang amounts of candy, it's more like all the candy you got from Halloween at once. So it's already got me to the point that I can call this record cloying. I say that because there are some pretty fun moments in here, as well as there are some not so fun ones. And Magdalena Bay nails in how to make their sound stand out, but as for myself, I'm just not really crazy about it. I did enjoy the listen, but I don't really feel the desire to listen to it again, outside of maybe the positive highlights, so 73%. This is another one of those reviews that I feel really awkward because my opinion is different of the general consensus, but I guess I have no other choice, so let's do it. This new Coldplay album is not bad. I wouldn't call this album great, because, well, it isn't. There are some songs that I feel pointless, others that have a lack of staying power. The interludes are completely useless. People of the Pride, which is a song that I really liked at first, but the more I heard it, the more I was confused by its half-edgy premise. But on the other hand, I also think this album is alright. Not amazing, but alright. Alright because some of the songs actually managed to grab me despite their flaws. Sure, none of them is especially memorable outside of my best track, but at least, while the record is spinning, I do enjoy what I hear. I wouldn't say this is their best record since Viva La Vida, because again...
Guess what, motherfucker?
It isn't. But this is by far the most excited I've been to see what they come up next since their records, because this album to me feels like a stepping stone or a prelude to something bigger. Will this bigger be a zero to everybody? Probably, but at this point I don't know what to expect. I'm a fat ass bag ready for my demise. 63%. This album is not bad, it's just too normal for its own good. It's an LP that just doesn't make much for a story. Finneas' vocals sound like any other average modern alt-rock or pop singer, like Mark Mumford or Dan Reynolds. The instrumentals aren't anything to brag home about. The production is mostly average, but there are definitely some clunky moments, and the lyrics vary from fine to awkward. The positive highlights are songs that, yeah, I would enjoy listening to them again, but I wouldn't voluntarily do so. And the negative highlights are songs that are actual demerits to the record. So to put this album in a word, normal. And normal isn't enough. If I wanted a normal experience, I'd go to McDonald's to eat a Big Mac with fries and a soda. And after that, I would get home and watch 2.5 Men. Not listen to a record by Billie Eilish's brother and producer, 53%. Punk. The main flaw of this project is pretty obvious. It's one of the most boring albums of this year. Woo! This album has an interesting sound initially, but it doesn't go much beyond that. It's mostly just the same thing over and over, with lyrics that are repetitive, tiring, and rarely have anything to give them body. It does have a few highlight moments, but honestly, I will forget all of these songs in 2 days or less. And plus, this thing has no business being over an hour long. It's a shame because I think Young Thug is a really talented guy. Too bad his discography has to be so spotty, with so many mediocre projects like this one taking place in it. So... 40%. When I listen to Grouper's music, I find it impressive over how simple yet beautiful it can be. The instrumentals are gentle, and rarely there's more than one or two in place. And her voice is so soothing that it feels like a sweet massage on your ears. The lyrics are certainly moody, but that helps to add to the experience of listening to those records. Sadly, at the same time I find her music to be so damn beautiful, I also find it difficult to get fully hooked into it. It's definitely a kind of music that I look forward to listen in the context of relaxation or isolation, but rarely in any other case. But don't take that as a step against it. If you like gentle, lo-fi albums that are very atmospheric, do not let this thing go over your radar. Highlights, 74%. Blackwater Holylight's previous album, Veils of Winter, was one of my favorite albums of 2019, so of course this means I was super excited for this album. And I guess this took a toll on me. It's not bad, it's just not as good as I was hoping it to be. But at least, it's better than their debut. I can say this is their most stylistically diverse project so far, by the subtle inclusion of acoustic guitars and even some guttural vocals occasionally. But it also carries the burden of being a project that can get really monotonous at points. A problem that was common in their debut, fixed in Veils, and now returned in a very similar way, which makes me kinda concerned about the band's direction in the future. I mean, I still like this album, the positive highlights are songs that are surely some of their finest tunes. It's just that it doesn't feel too much like an improvement from their previous records, so I guess 75%. This is a very flavorful jazz fusion record that even in its weakest points is still very entertaining. And plus, the featured guests make such a great work in here, especially Arthur Verocai. The only sad thing about it is that I personally can't find much to talk specifically about this record besides what I've mentioned before, so this review is going to be pretty short. But even with that, remember, it's a pretty great jazz fusion album, and one of the best jazz albums of the year to me. I guess the band should change their name to Good Good Not Bad to match with this album. And I should probably change my channel name to Predictable Not Funny too. Anyway, it's 86% superb. Initially I didn't think I was going to like this album as much as I did, because the first couple of songs of this record didn't exactly please me. But the more this album went, the more it grew on me, to the point that it's now, in my view, one of the strongest releases of the month. I really like how varied the sound palette is in here. It's a very surreal collection of psychedelic tracks that vary from rambunctious to mellow, and every song in here has its own unique flair. Sure, there were some letdowns in the tracklist for me, but the high points more than made up for it. I'm excited to keep listening to this record, I really want to see how this is going to age. And for the score, I'll say 82%. We've got Americana, we've got indie rock, we've got jazz, and we've got experimental everything. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Collage of the Month time!